Widow's Bay episodes 6 and 7 may have just quietly revealed what this island really is. And I'm no longer convinced we're dealing with a purely supernatural story. Because after these episodes, the show suddenly feels like it's blurring the line between folklore, inherited curses, and something much stranger. And what's really interesting is that some of these clues don't just feel supernatural anymore. They almost feel systematic. Like the island is preserving certain bloodlines, choosing specific people, and repeating the same cycle over and over again. So today, I'm breaking down 5 clues that you probably missed that suggests Widow's Bay may not just be about a supernatural curse, but more so about a repeating system that keeps choosing new people generation after generation. But before we get started, let me introduce myself if you're new here. And if you're not new here, then welcome back. My name is Brandy, and I realize that you could be on any channel in the world, but you're right here with me, and I really do appreciate that. So please go ahead and like this video. It really does help the channel out, and I greatly appreciate it. And also subscribe to the channel if you do enjoy watching TV show reviews. So let's dig right into clue number 1. Richard Warren and his true sight ritual. So I think that episode 7 may have just revealed the real relationship between Richard and the entity behind Widow's Bay. So we saw on episode 6 that Sarah caught Richard performing what appeared to be some kind of disturbing ritual where we see that he had his pendant open. It was black powdered mushroom substance removed from the pendant, and it looks like he rubbed it directly into a cut in the palm of his hand. And honestly, before I thought that the mushrooms were just a drug, but I no longer think that the mushrooms in this show are just drugs. I think that they're part of a ritual, and the hand cut imagery feels extremely intentional. Now, across folklore and occult storytelling, putting a substance into blood usually symbolizes entering or renewing a pact. And we know that Richard did just that because that's actually what he told Tom. So right there where Sarah caught him performing this ritualistic act, that suggests that he has been doing ongoing devotion, this ongoing maintenance, which makes me pose a terrifying question. Who has been maintaining, feeding this entity and performing this ritual while Richard was buried for 300 some odd years? And honestly, that changes everything because now the mushrooms, again, they stop looking like hallucinations or visions or some type of one-time supernatural experience. Now they look intentional. They look consistent. They look maintained, almost like Richard needs them. And when you connect that with the fact that somehow Richard survived, buried in a coffin underground for over 300 years, the implications become even more terrifying. Because what if Richard's immortality is directly tied to the continued submission to the island itself? Now, think about the pattern the show keeps showing us. Richard, he takes the mushrooms consistently, it appears, and he survives for centuries. Now, we saw the pastor, he takes the mushrooms seeking the truth. He sees something horrifying in the well, and he allegedly unalives himself. And we also saw that Tom took the shrooms one time that we know of, and he was hearing terrifying voices. He had blackouts, and he was even missing for a whole 24 hours where nobody could reach him. Now, it appeared that he was just on the toilet for 24 hours, but we don't know that just yet. So it looks like the mushrooms respond differently depending on the person taking them. And listen, the ritual itself fascinates me the most. That mushroom dust, the blood, everything. Ooh, this episode was just so good. And again, I keep asking myself the question whether Widow's Bay is supernatural or sci-fi. But if this is sci-fi, then the mushrooms may contain compounds that maybe they somehow alter the human body over time. Maybe they slow down the aging process, preserving your neural function or connecting certain individuals to a larger consciousness or system. Now, one of the biggest clues in episode 7 is the hidden photograph that Evan discovers of himself as a toddler with his mother. And the moment you see that picture, Tom's entire story starts falling apart. Because Tom has spent years telling Evan and seemingly the entire town, anybody that he meets, that Evan's mother died from complications during or right after childbirth. But that photo proves she survived long enough to raise Evan, at least until his toddler years. So why did Tom lie? Now, I think Tom is hiding something connected directly to the island itself. Remember, Tom is not originally from Widows Bay. He came to the island later on and he fell in love with a woman who had lived here her entire life. Now, it's not confirmed that the wife was born on an island just yet, not to my knowledge. But when him and his wife attempted to leave the island while she was pregnant, the island seemingly did reject her leaving. Her body immediately began shutting down once they crossed a certain point, or at least that's what the flashback showed us during Tom's mushroom trip. Now, combine that with Richard Warren's revelation that the curse may only end when his bloodline finally leaves the island. And suddenly, Evan becomes incredibly important because it seems like the show may be hinting that maybe Evan may be the last in the bloodline. And also, I just want to discuss quickly why I think may be a reveal later on. Now, a lot of people online are speculating whether or not Tom is Evan's biological father based off of something he said in the first episode.
4 months later, we were married. And yes, it's no secret she was already pregnant with you.
Now, to me, that conversation he had with Evan indicates that he is not Evan's biological father. So what if we are going to get a big reveal later down the line that maybe it's not the mother that's connected to Richard Warren's bloodline? Maybe it's Evan's father. Because listen, honestly, I have been looking at everybody and wondering who Evan's real father is. Because Evan really doesn't look like Tom, and he doesn't look like the mother in the pictures or the flashbacks as well. He has curly hair. He looks a bit brown. So I'm looking forward to a reveal of Evan's biological father and seeing how he plays into the story as well. Okay, so back to Evan himself possibly being one of the last living descendants connected to the original pact. That would completely recontextualize Tom's behavior because Tom doesn't just stay on the island, he becomes the mayor. And not only that, he wins the race uncontested. No real opposition, no competition whatsoever, almost like the town or maybe even the island itself wanted Tom in that position. And ever since becoming mayor, Tom has been aggressively trying to modernize Widows Bay and improve its infrastructure, making the island more livable, even more stable for future generations. But what if he's not doing that for the town? What if Tom's real mission is much more personal? What if he's desperately trying to build a version of Widows Bay that Evan would never want to leave? Because deep down, Tom may know the island will never truly let Evan go. Because if this is, again, a sci-fi story, then Widows Bay may not actually be cursed at all. The island could be operating like a closed system tied to specific bloodlines, almost like certain people are biologically linked to the anomaly itself. Evan's blood may literally connect him to whatever is powering the island, which would explain why the island violently reacted when his mother tried to leave while pregnant. But if this is supernatural, then Evan may be something far more terrifying. He could be part of a bloodline connected to Richard Warren's original pact, meaning the island isn't preserving him scientifically, it's claiming him spiritually. But listen, I love how ambiguous this show is with certain elements. I love that we don't know for sure if Tom is Evan's biological father. We don't know for sure that Tom's wife was born on that island. Hey, maybe she couldn't leave the island successfully because maybe when she was pregnant and her and Tom were trying to leave the island, maybe it was Evan's blood running through her pregnant body that was preventing her from leaving the island successfully without losing her eyesight and losing all her functionality. But if the island really is preserving certain bloodlines, then the next clue may reveal who the island is actually choosing next. Clue number 3 is the missing brooch. I hate that word, by the way. But early on in episode 6, Sarah gives young Frances a brooch to place on her doll. And at first, the moment feels small, insignificant. You won't think twice about it. But later in episode 7, after they dug Richard up, he wants to look through the preserved belongings of his children after their deaths. Now, the doll is still there, but the brooch is gone. So if the brooch is missing, then what happened to it? The show makes a very deliberate point to show Evan and his friend. They're opening Tom's hidden keepsake box. And inside that box, we get a quick glimpse of a small blue and white jewelry case. And the jewelry case is just big enough for a brooch. Now, here's where things really get interesting though. If the brooch is in Tom's wife's jewelry box, then Richard's daughter Frances may have survived, meaning Richard Warren's bloodline never actually really ended. And further evidence that Frances may have survived is the painting on the wall at the end of episode 7. We see in that painting that a child is in the ocean, and the child, it appears to be a little girl. She's about to be saved by someone on a boat holding out a paddle towards her to grab. So I really do think that the writers are intentionally and brilliantly, by the way, making us question whether the curse actually dies with Richard Warren because his bloodline may have survived. But what if the curse doesn't only pass through descendants? And this is something that is like boggling me. But what if it could also spread through blood itself? A transfer of blood, I mean. And this is a nice segue into clue number 4. Wick's injured hand, which was very suspicious to me, by the way. So after digging up Richard Warren's grave to retrieve the strange cylindrical pendant buried with him, the group made a horrifying discovery. Richard was still alive, but that wasn't the big deal. The real clue for me may not be Richard himself, it may be Wick. Because when Tom arrives, Wick immediately warns him not to try to open up the pendant himself. He explains that he already tried to open up the pendant and it badly cut his hand in the process. And at first, the injury seems minor until you notice where the wound is. Wick's cut is on the palm of his left hand, the exact same place Richard sliced his own palms during the ritual scenes that we saw on a previous episode. And that parallel feels far too specific to be accidental. Because what if Richard secretly transferred blood to Wick right after they dug him up, before Tom ever arrived? What if Wick and Richard are in cahoots with one another? The show has repeatedly emphasized blood rituals, inherited roles, and symbolic wounds tied to whatever power exists beneath the island. So the matching injury raises an unsettling possibility. Did the pendant somehow choose Wick? Or worse, is Wick already being influenced by the same force that controlled Richard Warren? Or thirdly, what if they are in cahoots? And my suspicion only grew further by the end of episode 7, where we hear that Richard and Wick are singing the same song. They're singing a song. It's some kind of a sailor song about the last man. But that feels deeply intentional, especially because Widow's Bed keeps returning to the same idea. Evil on an island doesn't die. It gets passed down. And if Richard was never truly the final villain, then Wick may be next in line. And the next clue also supports the theory that there may be another big bad right in front of us besides Richard. Now, the sacrificial chair, that's the 5th clue. Now, we see that Sarah discovers this chair in the basement near the cellar doors. And the chair is covered in blood. It has restraints tied to the arms. And it looks almost identical to the restrained wooden chair revealed in the basement at the end of episode 1. And at first, the chair just feels unsettling. But once you connect it to Richard's blood rituals and the idea that the island may require sacrifice, as Richard said, a life for a life, the chair suddenly feels much more important. Because if Richard has supposedly been buried for over 300 years, then who's been feeding the island in his absence? Again, it must be somebody right on screen that we're watching that also has been cooperating with the island. Now, could it be Rosemary? Could it be Patricia? Could it be Tom himself? Is Tom just playing dumb? At this point, we have no idea, but I cannot wait to find out that reveal as well. And now let's discuss some questions that I have after watching episodes 6 and 7. My first question is, why are the writers trying so hard to make Tom and his son Evan look like cowards? We see that Tom, when he was out on a boat with Wick and Richard, that he had a life jacket on the whole time. But not only that, we heard in previous episodes that Tom said that his dad called him soft at the age of 6. It's just been shown to us time and time again that they're trying to portray Tom as a coward. And also his son Evan. Usually when he's hanging out with his friends, he's in the back seat. He's the one being taken advantage of. I mean, we saw on this episode, why would he let his friend, I'm not sure if that's his girlfriend, but why would he let her go to his dad's room and find those pictures that were hidden? I think she was totally out of line for that. But it also makes me wonder who sent her on that mission. Did somebody send her on that mission? Or was that just her being a reckless teenager? And my last question is, does Jerry know about the story about how Wick kicked her brother off into the ocean? I'm just wondering how that story that we saw Wick telling Tom, how is that going to play into the grand scheme of things? Does Jerry know? Does she not know? Why did they choose to tell that story at that point in time? But nonetheless, guys, as always, tell me what theories you have down below. Tell me what clues that you saw that I might have missed. And as always, let me know what other shows you're watching at this time. I will be covering Widow's Bay again next week. Hopefully this video gets some engagement because this show is sadly flying under the radar. A lot of people don't seem to be watching it. So hopefully this video gets at least 6,000 plus views, so I will be able to review it again. But nonetheless, guys, if you made it this far in a video, please do me a favor. Drop me down a black heart below. As always, you guys stay safe out there. And until I see you next time, peace.